Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be talking about factoring trinomials into two different binomials. And these are going to be the first steps of factoring trinomial. We're going to take it easy and start off with some basic trinomials, and then we'll get more complicated as we get more comfortable with factoring. So let's go ahead and let's get started. Here we have our first trinomial that we are going to attempt to factor. And the first types of trinomials that we're going to look at are ones where we don't have anything, or I guess we could say we don't have a coefficient on this first term. There's no number here. Once we put a number there, it complicates our factoring process quite a bit. So today we're only going to look at problems where there's no number there, or where technically the number there is 1. But when it's 1, we don't typically write it. So all the problems that we look at today are going to be in this same form, where there's a number here and here. Okay. Now the key into being able to factor these is it's sort of like a puzzle. We're trying to find two numbers that can multiply and give me this number. So what number multiplied by another number can get me a positive 44? But at the same time, we want to know what two numbers, those same two numbers need to be able to add up together to positive 15. So two numbers whose product is 44 and whose sum is 15. So we try to mess around and we think, what two numbers can get me 44? 2 and 22. 2 times 22 is 44, but 2 times 22 is not 15. So we got to think of another number. Let's maybe try 4 and 11. 4 times 11 is 44. And 4 plus 11 is also 44. So these two numbers, what am I going to do with them? They were both positive. What we do is those two numbers are what I add to my x's, okay, and I create two binomials. So I take those two numbers, x, a positive 4. This is my first binomial. And my second binomial would be x and a positive 11. And if I were to multiply these two binomials, I would actually get x squared plus 15x plus 44. Okay, I could multiply them using FOIL, box method, area method, distributed property, whatever method you're comfortable with. Really doesn't matter which one you do, you would get this same trinomial. And that's really what we're doing. We're doing this same method for all of these problems that we're going to see today. And you're going to see that the only thing that changes are these two numbers. Okay, so that's how I come up with my two binomials. Let's go ahead and let's do another problem. Here I have x squared minus 13x plus 30. Again, in order to factor this, I need to find two numbers whose product is positive 30. So what two numbers can I multiply by each other that'll get me a positive 30? Okay. But then at the same time, those two numbers will add up or have the sum of negative 13. Okay. So let's think about it. What two numbers? Because now I have a negative. That middle number is now negative. So I have to think about how can I get a negative number? But then when I multiply these two numbers, it's still positive. So now two numbers whose product, when they multiply each other, you still get a positive number. But then when you add them, you get a negative number. Well, lucky for us in math, there's a rule that says that if you multiply a negative times a negative, you get a positive. And if I add two negatives together, I still get a negative. So for this one, after you mess with it for a bit, you would realize that negative 3 times negative 10 gets me a positive 30, because a negative times a negative is a positive. And then I can add negative 3 and negative 10, and I would get negative 13. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to have x. Now instead of having x plus a number, I'm going to have x minus 3, because it's a negative 3. And I'm going to have x minus 10, because it's negative 10. And these are the two binomials that I needed to factor. Okay, multiply those two, you will get the trinomial we started with. Let's go ahead and let's keep moving. Let's do another example. So here I have x squared plus 2x minus 15. So here I have, again, it's a different case because now I need their product to be negative. When I multiply these two numbers, I need their product to be negative, and I need them to add up to a positive number. So a little different this time around. So I need two numbers that multiply and get me a negative 15. But then I want to add those same two numbers, and I want to get a positive 2. Well, think about it. In math, how do we get a negative number when multiplying? Well, if both of them are negative, we just saw that if both of them are negative, you get a positive number. So we know that only one of these numbers can be negative, okay? Only one of these can be negative. So we have a negative 15. How do we get a negative 15 by multiplying two numbers? Well, one way you can do it is if you get a 5 and a 3. Okay, so let's say 5 times 3. 5 times 3 is definitely 15. But the question is, which one do I make negative? I only need one of them to be negative, and I need the other one to be positive so that I can get a negative 15. Well, the way we answer that, or the way we know which one to make negative, is by looking at the next one. If I add these two numbers, which one needs to be negative so that I end up with a positive 2? Well, if I make the 5 negative, negative 5 plus 3, that's actually negative true. So this bottom one would not be true. But if I make the 3 negative, 5 plus a negative 3, that actually is a positive 2. 5 times negative 3, that's a negative 15. So I need the 5 to be positive, and I need the 3 to be negative. So that means that my answer will be x. We need the positive 5, and then we need x and the negative 3. And those are the two binomials that I'm looking at for this problem. Let's go ahead and look at one more example. For this last example, you're going to see that I actually have two negative signs here. So x squared minus 2x minus 8. All right. So let's go ahead and let's try to think of what two numbers can get me a negative 8 when I multiply them. And then remember, we want a negative 2 this time when we add them. So what two numbers can give me 8? Hopefully you're thinking of 2 times 4. Okay, so let's think. 2 times 4, that is 8. And I can probably use those numbers to give me a 2 as well. But now we have the same dilemma as the last question, where which one am I supposed to make negative? And again, we look at the sum for that. Okay, I need one of them to be negative and one of them to be positive because there's a negative 8 that we got when we multiply that we need to get. So only one of them is allowed to be negative. But 4 plus 2, how can I use 4 and 2 and get a negative 2 when I add them? Well, the only way to do that would be to make the 4 negative. Okay, so for this one, my answer is going to be x minus 4. And then we got x. And the 2 is going to be positive, so we do plus 2. And that would be the two binomials that I get for factoring x squared minus 2x minus 8. So hopefully now you feel like you can factor these trinomials. Again, that these were only trinomials that didn't have what a lot of times in math they call the a term, but I kind of explained it to you as a term in front of that x squared, which was our first term. This method only works for trinomials that are in that same form, okay? But hopefully now you feel like you can handle those. It's kind of like a puzzle. Which two numbers multiply and give me this, but then add up and give me this? If you treat it like that, you'll do great at it, and hopefully you've learned some math. As always, just want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.